My name is Eileen Flockhart, and I'm running for re-election for state representative for District 13, which is Northampton, Stratham, and Exeter. I've been a resident of New Hampshire for 25 years and have taught school here for 23 of those 25 years. So my interest in education has directed me these past 2 years to become part of a committee called Children and Family Law. And this committee has not only provided me with an education about expanded legislation related to that, but it's also given me an opportunity to use some of the skills I've developed over the years in education. I've also been involved in a group called the Legislative Caucus for Young Children. And this is a bipartisan group of legislators who are concerned with issues related to children and families and follow closely those bills which they feel are going to be positive and important in the support of families and children throughout the state. And they also monitor carefully those that might be detrimental to see that what we do legislatively is good, solid, positive legislation that protects and supports our families in the state. I have thoroughly enjoyed the time that I spent working in committee as well as this caucus, and I see that there, unlike what you hear of politics as usual, that there is a tremendous amount of cooperation and caring that happens within that framework. And I look forward to continuing to do that. I'm very concerned about waste, both with time and money in government. You might say, why should anybody vote for me? And that's a decision you'll have to make yourself, but I'd like to give you a little bit of a glimpse into how I think and what I would like to do. I have been accused of shining pennies and being very careful about what gets spent, probably as my experience as a teacher has taught me to scrounge and scavenge and make do with what's there. I also like to think outside the box when it comes to solving problems. Money is not always the answer to a problem. Money and good analysis and thinking outside the box are clearly what needs to be done for many of the challenges that face New Hampshire. On the flip side of that penny pinching side of me is also a passion I have for the fact that we need to be responsible for each other. We need to show caring for all of those members, all of those citizens in our state. I'd like to take an example that might give you a little glimpse into how I think. We all know what a crisis health care is in the state and in the country. If we were to take one small piece of that, mental health care, and I would imagine that anyone watching this knows someone or is connected in some way to a person who has dealt at one time in their life with some form of mental illness. Let's take one that's fairly familiar to people, depression. And severe depression can be very debilitating. Let's say the person who's depressed is a parent with children to raise. Right away, when we think of that, we see the ripple effects. Children are trying to deal with a crisis situation, have difficulty in school. Spouse and family members try to support. Community members, friends, and neighbors try to also help deal with that, and in the process find it difficult and maybe even lose time from school or from work, and the stress does take its toll. When the care for that person is difficult, then the stress becomes unbearable. On the flip side, when we look at that and say, we can provide support, we can provide medical care. We can, as a community, even with volunteer efforts, provide for that family. We have a person who now becomes effective, becomes able to cope, is able to work, is able to find a place to live and stay there and pay taxes. And we now have a situation where there's a win. So we can look at saying we don't have enough money to deal with this issue, or we can say we can't afford not to deal with this issue. And it's just one small way I look at the way we look at legislation and how we can solve the problem. There are many other areas that I'm very excited and concerned about. I would be very honored to have your vote, and I look forward to serving for another 2 years in the State House and using the skills that I've learned so far. Thank you.